Good morning, Wisconsin. Welcome back to day two and the second day of our virtual portion of the Small Business Academy. I am Dr. Gene Manzanet, WDC Senior Director of Diverse Business Development, live from Wauwatosa, Wisconsin, the corporate headquarters of the Wisconsin Procurement Institute. I want to welcome you back. Hopefully, many of you enjoyed yesterday's program. And for those who did, thank you for joining us as we were focused on business finance and the various tools that can be leveraged. And we've listened to a fabulous panel from the SBA award winners for 2024. Great stories, great takeaways from the panel. I encourage everyone, if you have not seen it, to kind of circle back and make sure you take a view of those videos and listening to the encouragements and the stories of the business owners on that panel was fabulous stories to share with our communities. Today, our session will be focused on marketing, and I would like to invite Stephanie Chang from Hmong Wisconsin Chamber of Commerce to introduce our first session. Have a great morning.
Thank you, Dr. Jean. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session on branding basics for small business, setting the foundation to build a vibrant brand and thriving business. We are privileged to have Jay Olson here with us today to share his extensive knowledge and insight on this topic. Jay Olson's multifaceted career spans over 40 years as a brand strategy consultant and marketing communications leader, working with notable companies such as Quad Graphics, Northwestern Mutual, and Ralston Purina. He has consulted with organizations of all sizes in diverse industry settings, driving sustainable growth and branding and brand equity. Now retired, Jay volunteers with SCORE, where he serves as a branding subject matter expert, workshop presenter, and co-mentor. He is passionate about inspiring and empowering entrepreneurs and business owners to build vibrant, purpose-driven brands and realize their full potential. Today's workshop will provide a high-level understanding of branding and its power to drive sustainable, long-term growth for your business. Jay will debunk common myths about branding, introduce best practices, and share practical advice tailored specifically to the needs of early-stage businesses and startups. Before we dive into this session, I'd like to take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Stephanie Chang, and I serve as the Regional Business Manager for North Central Wisconsin with the Hmong Wisconsin Chamber of Commerce. Our organization is dedicated to supporting and empowering small businesses, particularly within the AAPI and underserved communities, to thrive and succeed. I'm excited to be here today with you all as we explore the fundamentals of branding for small businesses. I look forward to an engaging and informative session with Jay and all of you. Let's go ahead and get started.
Thank you, Stephanie. Appreciate the warm welcome, the warm welcoming, and really appreciate everybody being here today. You may be wondering why all the colorful umbrellas that you see here. Well, it serves as a metaphor. Umbrellas only work when they're open. The same is true about learning. We only learn when our minds are open and open to new ideas and ways of thinking. And that's what today is all about. Now, just a little bit more about me, and thanks again, Stephanie, that was very nice. I am just so grateful that I am retired right now, and I'm able to pay it forward as a SCORE volunteer. This is because one of my greatest joys in life really is supporting the needs of small businesses and helping them grow and succeed. Some of you may not be familiar with SCORE, so I'll just tell you a little bit about that right now. It is the nation's largest network of volunteer small business mentors. Their services are completely free, and the work that SCORE does is supported by the SBA. And so if you're looking to start a new business or grow your existing business, you can always request a SCORE mentor at score.org, and here's a link to do that. And by the way, I believe this presentation will be made available to everybody. I don't know if it's going to be sent out automatically, but it will be made available to you. So there are a lot of hot links and so forth throughout the presentation. So just want to let you know that. Before we get started, here are 2 truths I'd like to share with you, just to set the tone for the day. The first one is this: if you want to stand out from the crowd, don't look, act, and sound like everybody else on your website and all of your messaging and your presentations. And closely related to that is, don't try to portray yourself to be the person you think people want you to be. Be true to who you are when you are at your natural best. Authenticity is key to building a vibrant brand. Now, I'm not here to convince you to do anything today. I can't do that anyway. Only you can convince yourself. But my primary goal is simply this: to inspire you to think differently about branding and the powerful role it can play to transform your business and your life. We're going to start by debunking a few common myths about branding, and I'll help you set this foundation so you can build a vibrant brand. And then we'll cover a couple of tips for how to live your brand and bring it to life. We'll do a short wrap up, and I believe at the end of the presentation we have a short period of time for a Q&A. Let's start with that first myth. A brand is a name, a logo, or a slogan. Well, certainly they are manifestations of a brand, but they're not your brand. Brands are imbued with meaning, built from the inside out, with purpose and values inculcated deeply into the fabric of the founder's life and the culture of the organization. Now, one of my favorite purpose-driven brands has to be Patagonia. Now, they're literally in business. Their sole purpose is to save our planet. How they do that? Well, they build products that practically last forever, and they cause no unnecessary harm to the environment or to society, and they protect nature. Now, interestingly and paradoxically, if I can only speak today, a few years ago, they started a new campaign called Buy Only What You Need. That same year, sales rocketed 33%. Why? Because they know their audience intimately well. A, and B, because they share similar values. Now, here's the second myth. My personal brand isn't important. Well, actually, it is your most important asset. And you already have a personal brand, whether you believe it or not. The question to ask, though, is, what does it stand for? And if you don't know the answer to that, and you can't easily articulate it, then stay tuned, because we'll give you some clues to help you figure that out. Your brand is important because it establishes your credibility and builds trust. And what I mean by that is, when people first learn about a new brand, for example, one of the first things they will probably do is check out the reviews, or maybe they'll go to the website to check out who owns this brand, if they know actually what they're doing, and can I really trust them to deliver their promises? Those are big, important questions, and your personal brand really comes to play here. And speaking to that trust factor, Richard Branson has to be the personal brand of entrepreneurs personified. According to LinkedIn, Richard Branson's personal brand is 100 times more powerful than the company he founded. Remove Richard Branson from Virgin, and I'm sure their stocks would plummet. But here's the thing. Richard Branson's personal brand wasn't always that powerful. He had to start someplace. So can you. Now, here's the third myth. My offering matters most. Well, certainly your products and services are important, but it's not the most important. It's something called perceived brand value that drives preference and demand for your products and services. You can think of this as a word equation. I'm going to take the sum total of your product and service benefits, plus your channel benefits, plus your brand equity benefits. And from that, subtract the price that people pay to do business with you. What's left is something called perceived brand value. Now, most of this is pretty straightforward. For example, products and services, well, that includes things like performance and safety and selection, etc. They're the things that you see here. Channel benefits are also pretty self-explanatory. It includes the user experience that people receive, no matter what channel they use to do business with you. And also making your products and services accessible to people. Those are things that kind of fall in that category. What is less probably understandable but certainly less tangible would be something called the brand equity benefits. This includes a gestalt of attributes such as purpose and values, brand personality, and the other things that you see here. In addition to that, then price obviously is very straightforward. We don't really need to talk much about this. So the reason I bring this up is perceived brand value is very, very important. And if you want to build a vibrant brand and a thriving business, you really need to focus on continually raising the bar on those three buckets that you see on the left side of this equation: your products and service benefits, your channel benefits, and your brand equity benefits. But by the way, keep this in mind too. Don't focus all of your time on your products and service benefits. It's just a matter of time. People are going to copy no matter what you do or render what you do probably less important to them. But what they can't do is they can't duplicate your brand equity benefits, things like your purpose and values. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So this is very important to kind of keep in mind, keep raising the bar on perceived brand value. Here's the fifth myth. Decision-making is a conscious process. Well, no again. Emotions trigger our buying decisions, and our emotions are centered below the conscious mind. So neurologists, for example, would tell you 95% of the decision-making actually occurs below the conscious mind. And in fact, recent studies have shown that our decisions are actually made unconsciously before we actually make them consciously, which is a scary thought to me. But that said, here's the bottom line. You have to win the heart first, then the mind, in that order. So here's the fifth myth. I should market to everyone who needs what I do. Again, no. Simon Sinek says it best. Market to those people who think like you do. What he means by that, people that hold similar values that you do. And I don't know about you, but I noticed that our nation's values have become deeply polarized. On the far left, there are still people that hold intrinsic values to the heart. They do things for the joy. They put community first before their own individual needs. It's a fewer group for sure. And the types of things that motivate these people include things like the ability to make a larger impact on society or to make a difference in the world, the feeling of being connected to other people, and the opportunity to continue to learn and grow. On the far right side is a growing group of people that hold extrinsic values more to the core of their lives. They do things for the external reward, and they prize individuality over community. And the types of motives that seem to appeal to people on this side of the equation are help me stand out from the crowd. I want to increase my financial gain, and I'm afraid of losing control of what I already have. So this is very big and obviously polarized, and people typically fall somewhere in the middle. But the idea here is very simple. Shared values matter, and values drive our motives. So you really want to make sure that when you're marketing to people, that you are focusing on similar shared values. Myth 6, branding and marketing are the same. Well, no, they're not. They're overlapping disciplines, but they're definitely not the same. Branding transcends marketing. We need marketing, of course, to create awareness and generate leads for our businesses. But branding transcends marketing. It transcends every aspect of your business, even your life. Branding is grounded in truth, totally, where marketing is often aspirational. And branding is transformational. It can lead to quantum leaps in business success. While marketing tends to use both a combination of push and pull strategies and tactics to drive sales, well, branding works on a totally different plane. It's really about creating the perception of value that is so powerful that people can't live without it. And here's another difference. Branding is infinite, while marketing tends to be short-term focused and driven by campaigns. I like to kind of think about branding similar to, I'm going to use the analogy of growing a bamboo tree. You plant the seed, you water it and nurture it, and you watch it grow the first year. Maybe it grows a couple inches. You continue to water and nurture it, and you see little change for the next 5 years. Then by the 6th year, that bamboo tree grows 90 feet in the air during a 6-week period. Now, branding works a lot the same way. It's ongoing though, and it's something that doesn't happen overnight, but it does lead to monumental growth if you just stay patient with it and let it grow. Myth 7, naming my brand and designing my logo are among the first things I should do. Well, certainly a lot of new startups go there very quickly, but that is not ideal. The best places to start is after you've laid a foundational brand strategy. And this isn't complicated, it's pretty easy to do. I'm going to use a process that might kind of help you explain this. I'm going to start with discovery. This is about learning what your brand stands for and what makes you unique versus other products and services that are offered in your field. It starts by understanding that, really unearthing the meaning of your brand's DNA, understanding the customers and needs and motivations and their perceptions about you and why they might need your brand, and the competitive environment. And once you've completed the discovery phase, and this doesn't take a lot of time, the next thing that you need to do is define how you want to communicate what your brand stands for. This includes things like defining your value proposition, your brand positioning, and actually defining the voice and visual identity of your brand. Once you've done that, now you're ready to start naming your brand and your domain name, and maybe starting to do your brand identity, which means designing your logo, your tagline, and the color palette and all of that. And once you've done all of that, you're ready to start building your website, the social media presence that you might strive to have, etc. But don't start at the end, start in the front and build that foundational strategy first. So important to do that. Next, we're going to talk about setting that foundation. And to do that, we're going to start about how to discover your brand's DNA. Now, there are 6 attribute areas that comprise your brand's DNA. It includes your why and hows, your personality, your competency, causes and beliefs that you're passionate about and support, your hobbies and interests, and in some cases it could include your heritage if you have a lineage of people that come that precede you in your family and so forth in your field of endeavor. We don't have time to get in all of this today, but we will kind of focus a little bit more on your whys and hows and your personality. Your why and hows are the cornerstone of your brand. You can think of this as your purpose and values. Simon Sinek is the guru. He is the one who wrote the book, Find Your Why. And you can click on this link in the middle, Simon Sinek, Start With Why. It's a short, it's about 15-minute video that will give you an overview if you're not familiar with the golden circle, which is his concept. But I would encourage you that you do both and get a copy of the Find Your Why book and read the first 3 or 4 chapters. It'll prescribe how you discover your why and hows and articulate them. It's very, very helpful. Just for purpose of example, I'm going to share my personal why and hows with you. My why in life is to learn and grow daily and support others so they can realize their potential. Now, my why is founded on the belief in the infinite potential of the human spirit, and there is nothing we can't do if we set our minds on it and work together to accomplish it. Now, how I bring my why to life is the following guide rails, right, which he calls hows. By living my life with an open mind and learning mindset, by embracing my own fears and anxieties in the vulnerable situations I encounter boldly, confidently, with dignity and grace, and by imagining what can be, what is possible, by expanding creativity and by challenging the status quo, and by looking for the positive in every person and situation I encounter, knowing that energy flows where thought goes. Our thoughts are like a magnet. And there's something valuable to learn from every person I meet, even if our worldviews are vastly different. And lastly, to do it for the rose, knowing that the greatest joy comes from the journey, not the destination, and from collaborating with others to create something meaningful and lasting. Now, I didn't crawl up in a cave someplace or in a vacuum and dream this stuff up. This is something that took some deep introspection. It's simple language. It's easy to understand. It's not full of a lot of corporate speak. It's people speak. And it absolutely is based on life-changing experiences I've had since I was a child. And I followed Simon Sinek's approach, his process to do this. And I will tell you, it's absolutely changed my life in many ways. It's really at the core, at the forefront of pretty much every thing I do every day, in terms of the relationships I have with people, my family, and how I would conduct my business. Now, your personality. This is another aspect of this. It's the heartbeat of your brand. It drives the look and feel and the tone and manner. Now, just for kicks, I'm going to suggest that you do this little homework exercise. It's fun. Take this list of 100 personality characteristics. Circle the top 5. Take that list and set it aside. Now take the same list and send it out to 20 people who know you pretty well, excluding family members, of course, that heaven forbid, and have them do the same. Have them identify the top 5 characteristics they feel best represent you and have them send it back to you. Once you get them back, synthesize all that feedback and identify the top themes. Then compare that to your list. I'm sure you're going to find some very big surprises, but I put more weight on what you hear from people who know you. Next thing that you can do is find your primary brand archetype. Now, brand archetype theory was actually designed by Carl Jung, who is a Swiss psychologist, and he theorized that people use symbols to understand concepts. And these 12 brand archetypes that you see around this wheel here are pre-programmed in our collective unconscious. Each one of these brand archetypes has its own set of values, beliefs, and behaviors. To learn more about brand archetype thinking and theory, you can read one of my favorite books called The Hero and the Outlaw by Carol Pearson and Margaret Marks. And you can also go to Kay Putnam's website, .com brand archetypes. Now, I would suggest that you learn about all 12 of the brand archetypes. Identify the one that best represents your personality and focus on that one. Don't dare do a hybrid or try to do 3 or 4 of these, because that's not going to work. Find your primary and focus on that one. Now, we've only talked about a couple of the elements here, but one of the other things that you have to do is define your value proposition. And this is carved out of the intersection of these 3 spheres: understanding about your brand and what it stands for, understanding about the competitive environment that you operate, and understanding your customer. Value propositions actually provide the reasons why customers should choose your brand over others. And it identifies the key functional, emotional, self-expressive benefits that your brand delivers. Now, the problem though is that value proposition can include a lot of different benefits, can include 5, 6, sometimes even more. So that's way too much. People are bombarded with too much information today. So we have to make it easy for them. Focus on one thing and one thing only. This is called brand positioning. It's identifying that single primary benefit that you choose to emphasize, and then including the emotional impact that creates. And brand positioning statements need to be audience specific. So I'm going to show you an example. We all are familiar with Harley Davidson. So here's an example of what their positioning statement probably looks like. For freedom seekers, Harley Davidson is a passionate motorcycle maker that provides freedom on the open road, giving customers a sense of individuality and independence. Now, this is what I call a standard format for brand positioning statement, because it includes the target market, the company name, the company descriptor, etc. But primarily, the thing that you need to think about is the primary customer benefit and the emotional impact that creates. Now, to be honest with you, customers should never see a brand positioning statement, but it should be imbued in everything that you do. And here's how Harley Davidson actually brings this to life on their website: the timeless pursuit of adventure, freedom for the soul. Okay, that was pretty quick. We covered a lot of information here, but I'm going to leave you with a couple of additional tips on how to live your brand. And this is pretty simple. Do things right, focus on that, and do the right things. The first thing you want to do, though, is you want to make sure that you deliver your brand promise at every point of contact with your audience. Brand promise you can just think of as the experience that you want people to have when they do business with you. It includes your website as the hub, your marketing hub, your branding hub, the center of everything that you do. And it needs to be user-centric, easy to use. You need to provide engaging content that people are looking for and can help them solve their problems. And it needs to be consistently delivered, your messaging across all the channels that you see here. Another thing that you can do is show your appreciation in unexpected ways. People just want to know that you care about them, and show them. I'm going to include another personal example for you that I think you enjoy hearing about. My family and I have been adopting Weimaraners and fostering them for many years. A few years back, our male Weimaraner, Deja Blue, which was one of my favorite Weimaraners of all time, he got ill eating his dog food, which we just bought from Chewy.com. So my wife got on the phone with Chewy.com and let them know. And she talked to the customer service representative there. And he said, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear about that." And he ended up refunding our money to us. or actually helped us get another bag that would be about the same cost and so forth. And he told us to destroy the dog food so it doesn't, harm another dog. Then, about a year later, Deja Blue passed away from natural causes, nothing to do with the dog food. But we had just bought another bag of dog food from Chewy.com. And my wife called back and let them know about that. And at that time, again, they were very sorry to hear about that. And they just told us, look, take the food and donate it to a worthy cause near you. People that can actually use it for, animal shelter, for example. And we'll refund all of your money to you. Now, in both cases, the first case, we received this personalized, heartfelt little note from the customer service rep, which is very touching. The second event that happened, we received a bouquet of flowers about 3 days later and a sympathy card from Chewy.com. Now I have to ask you, do you think my family is going to go anyplace else to do business rather than Chewy.com? No, it won't happen. People will never forget how you make them feel. And if you want to build loyalty, you think of creative ways to express your appreciation. You're going to be well on the way. Now, we've covered a lot of information I don't want to overdo, but I do want to leave this final thought with you before we summarize. Money is like fuel. Cars need fuel, but the purpose of the car is not to buy more fuel. Business is the same. The purpose of business is not to make money, is to advance a greater purpose or cause. Now, here's the thing. That purpose doesn't have to be audacious like saving the planet. It can be very simple. Anything that you do to help improve people's lives and make them, and make their lives better some way. But here's the thing about this. It's not about you. It's about your customer. Focus on your customer and the solutions that you provide. Remember, they are not coming to you because they have to. They're coming to you because they have a problem. And your job is to help them solve it. So what I don't hate to see is a website when you first come to it, and it's all about me. It's all about how great my offering is. You're forgetting the important point here. Yes, you need to show your products and services, but people are coming to you for solutions. So you need to create that kind of sense of empathy with them. Make your customer the hero in everything you do and in your messaging. So let's quickly summarize the top takeaways here today. The first one, discover your whys and hows. That's the cornerstone of your brand's DNA. This is the starting point. Please spend the time to do that and do it right. You'll be thanking me for that later. Number 7, discover your brand's primary brand archetype. This again, focusing on bringing its essence to life through the look and feel, tone, and manner of your brand. Number 6, change your mindset. This we didn't get a chance to talk too much about, but we get so close to what we're doing and trying to run a business that we forget why and who we're doing it for. Seek to see the world through your customer's eyes. And this only comes from talking to them, listening to them, learning from them what you can do to provide greater value. Number 5, focus on that single primary benefit and the emotional impact that you want people to associate with your brand. Number 4, embed the essence of your why and hows in your brand positioning in every aspect of your communications and how you conduct your business. Here's another one, as we just briefly discussed, make your customer the hero. Don't focus on yourself in your messaging, how you run your business. Number 2, this is an important one, build for the long term and keep raising the bar on perceived brand value. This is how you achieve quantum leaps in business success. There are no shortcuts here, folks. You've got to take a long-term view and focus on it. Lastly, live your brand in every breath you take. Stay true to who you are, as we talked about earlier. Now, that pretty much summarizes our presentation today. And we're going to have, I believe, a brief time for a short Q&A. But before we even get started, I wanted to let you know that there is a very in-depth appendix that's part of this presentation that includes a lot of information that we just could not get to today. And I've already covered a lot. So with that in mind, let's open it up to questions. Stephanie, can you take the lead on this?
Absolutely. Thank you, Jay.
And Stephanie, this is the back room speaking for the audience. At this point in time, oh, we do have a question.
Okay.
Please suggest a good book to learn brand archetypes. And that is the only question that has come in so far. To the audience, you stand a chance to reach the top of the pile if you put one in now.
Okay. Jay, we do have a question here. Do you have any book suggestions for brand archetype?
Oh boy, I do not have a specific right now, but I can certainly get back to somebody. I think I left my email address and phone number in one of the opening slides there when I showed myself. I think it was the second slide. But I will tell you this: in the I think it's in the appendix. We have two or three slides that really speak to that. And essentially, I will say this: if you're just starting a new brand, or you're still at early stage development, you need to make a decision about how you want to go forward. There are two or three different alternatives that you can take. One is called a branded house, where all the brand equity really comes back to your master brand. And then you can do a hybrid. And then the other one would be a house of brands, where you have multiple different brands. And they're not really related that you can tell. There are pros and cons to both approaches. I really prefer, I think, the branded house approach most often. And the reason for this is because I think there's economies of scale by doing that, because the brand equity always rolls right back up to the master brand. And but at any rate, I digress here a little bit, but that's an approach that I think you can consider. I don't know if you answered your question well enough, but I will dig. I'm just trying to remember back on some of the books I've read, and I'm not sure I have a favorite in mind right now. Any other questions?
Yes. What advice would you give when you are providing unique services and be able to open doors for others to network, even when you have rare services? It sounds like a very customized market.
Wow. So what advice would I give to a business that has very niche services while networking? Was that the question?
I'll read the question again. What
Okay,
advice would you give when you are unique services and be able to open doors for others to network?
Got it. Well, that's kind of I would say the advice I would have here would be just thinking about this for a minute. the thing here that I would say that's important is it's not your services, it's not your products. It's more about why you're doing what you do. And again, it kind of goes back to what we said about Simon Sinek earlier. And that is try to focus on I guess your purpose and why you do what you do with your business. Now, focus on that primarily in terms of, talks that you might have with other businesses, because I think it's going to be far more differentiating. And then I think it would be by starting with your products and services, or your even if you have unique services and so forth, keep in mind you only exist to serve people's solutions, to provide solutions to people's problems. So kind of get back to your why you started this, because I think it can be far more captivating in order to get attention and get people interested in what you have to offer. Hope I answered that well enough.
Okay, next question. Can you discuss the difference between personal branding versus business branding?
Absolutely.
Conflicting thoughts. Sorry, second part of the question. I've heard conflicting thoughts on merging the two together and keeping them separate.
Got it. Yeah, it's a two-part question. Yeah. Your personal brand. And we talked about this a little bit earlier. I think if you're starting a business or you're in early stage, you only have a handful of customers, a handful of employees, I should say, you don't have an organizational brand. You have a personal brand. And that's what you use to leverage and build off of. And organizational brands come into play as you get larger. Let's say you have 100 employees or so. And then it can start to take on a little bit of a different, your business will take on a little bit of a different approach. In this case, it becomes more of a group decision-making process to help you kind of identify, your brand going forward. Keep in mind, though, if the founder is still involved in the business, likely a lot of his or her personal brand is still going to carry over to the organizational brand. The organizational brand comes into play again as you grow larger in an organization. So I hope I answered that question well too. Well enough. But if I didn't, let me know. Any other questions?
Yes. Would you say this process is the same for an LLC and a nonprofit? What is different, if different?
It's a great question. I really think they're pretty similar. Whether it's an LLC or a nonprofit. Yes, here's the thing, and we talked about this a little bit earlier. We tend to get caught up on too much on what we do, and not enough on realizing the fact that, hey, we're all the same. There isn't a difference, really, in my opinion, between B2B and B2C and nonprofit thinking. It should be people to people, always. That's what I think is the important way to think about this. People don't do business with, I guess, inanimate entities, whether it be a corporation, an LLC, or a nonprofit. They do business with people. That's the thing that I would drive home. Hopefully that answers that question as well.
Thank you.
Other questions?
How damaging is it to modify brand after being in business for, say, 4 years?
That's a great
no longer
question.
have partners and wish to tweak what is already in place?
That's a great question. Businesses evolve, as we all know, and I would like to think that we live in kind of a whitewater world, and we try to build our business and make the best of it. But we never know what's around every bend, and things change every day. New opportunities, new threats, etc. So as we continue to grow and evolve, things change. Certainly, if a founder is bringing on new partners, that has to come into play. In a case like that, you still want to build the brand around the one that's really at the forefront, who is the envisioner, the visionary for the business. That would be the focal point. But that said, building an organizational brand, you approach it a little bit differently than you did, because it's more of a group exercise. And if you go back to Simon Sinek's book, he has a whole chapter on that, on how to, or a couple of chapters actually, on how to build organizational brands. They are similar, but it's a little bit different, and it takes into account key stakeholders in the business all participating. Any other questions?
Yes, and I will say I don't think we'll get to all these questions this morning.
Okay.
The next one, can products under one company have their unique mini brands, these mini brands and distinct looks, or is that too confusing to the market? New company, don't have reputation or history, so our focus is to focus on the need and use of the product.
Okay. So what I understand here is multiple products under one brand, and or services, it could be, I guess. But yes, that's not a problem. It happens all the time. It can even happen, I mentioned there could be a branded house or a hybrid approach or a house of brands. But the idea here is that this would probably lean more toward a hybrid approach, where you might have the master brand, the name of your overall business. It could be, let me see if I can think of a good example. I know that I spent some time with Quad Graphics, and I know that the master brand is now called Quad, but underneath that you have different divisions of the company, or different products and services that are offered under those divisions. And so, yes, they tend to have their own, a little bit of their own space, but they all have the same look and feel, if you will. So it might be Quad Data Services, or it might be Quad Digital Services, whatever. Might be, I'm making this up a little bit because I haven't been with Quad Graphics for a long time. But that's the idea, is that you can go kind of on that path where you still keep that brand equity coming back to the master name, Quad, or Quastar, the name of the company. The other approach, though, too, is you can give it a little bit more space. For example, you can have a company that you might have Nestle's might be the master brand, but it might be a subgroup of Nestle's that also might take on a little bit of that, like like Purina might be. I think that's now owned by Nestle's. Now owns Purina. I think it might. So it's still take on its own. But so I guess what I'm saying is that Nestle's would become a shadow endorser behind the Ralston Purina product. So there are various options in between the two. Any other questions?
This one might be the last question.
Okay.
First, Jay, thank you for your time. How do I create my brand?
How do I create my brand? Well, that is we kind of went over that today in course. And you don't just sit down and design your logo and create your, and come up with the name of your business. That's not a great place to start. Oftentimes though, people want to say, hey, look, gosh, I've got this great business opportunity and I've done all my homework. I know what I need to do here. Now I just need a logo and I need a website. No, you don't want to start there. You have to ask yourself this question: what does your brand stand for? And how do you want to communicate what makes you different? If you can't do that, then you have to stop back and start at the beginning. And the beginning would be to lay that foundational strategy, like we talked about earlier. And I just very touched upon that today because of lack of time. But those are the things that you should do first. If you can't tell people, look, this is what I stand for. This is what my business stands for. And this is what makes me unique. If you can't do that easily, then you're not ready to go any further in terms of creating or designing your brand.
Very good.
That
We
might be all the time
more
that we
time
have.
for questions.
Any other
Thanks,
questions?
Stephanie. Go ahead.
Okay.
Is that all the time we have questions for?
Yes,
Stephanie,
thank you, Stephanie.
Okay.
We're out of time for questions now. If you wouldn't mind maybe wrapping up the session. And Jay, I think there was interest in your contact information.
Okay, it is on the second slide. Would you like me to go over that now? I sure can. You can, you can get a hold of me at probably my email would be best. It would be jay.olson, O-L-S-O-N, not E-N, at scorevolunteer.com. That'd probably be the best way to get a hold of me, and I'm happy to talk to anybody that might want to reach out.
All right, thank you, Jay, so much for that informative session. I think that's all the time that we have for today. So thank you so much for joining us again. And have a great rest of your day.
You're welcome. Thank you, everybody. I'm so glad to be with you, and I wish you all well. And I hope your businesses are a smashing success. Take care and enjoy your day too.